Hey everybody, this is Professor Jason Snart. I'm your instructor for the 5-week summer session here at COD. Just checking in, setting up my webcam here. I'll give you the tour of my office. Little bookshelf, nothing, hat stand, and door. Pretty sweet. This is actually a temporary office for me, and I'll be moving in a week or so, and I'll give you the tour of the next one, which will look a lot fancier, I promise. Okay, so welcome to the 5-week session here. Obviously, our course is entirely online, so this is kind of the only face-to-face time we're going to get. I do a number of these video check-ins on a pretty regular basis. They're obviously unscripted and just kind of whatever I feel like saying. A lot of just reminders of due dates and maybe a few extra comments about readings or ideas that we're covering or work that we're doing, you know, just that kind of stuff. So be sure to check into these on a regular basis and be sure to actually watch them because they're awesome, obviously. But also, there is sometimes sort of like content stuff that's good to be aware of. And again, good reminders about due dates and work coming up and what's due and all that kind of stuff as well. Okay, so online, it's important in any week format, whether it's 5, 8, 10, 16, whatever. Since we're all online, it's really important, and I'm just clicking myself into our course here, it's really important to read directions carefully. It's really not much more complicated than that. So as you're getting sort of situated in terms of our course, you'll see that we have the announcements page where you're seeing this as the main page that comes on, but then our course menu at the left that has various links to things like due dates, really important. The work for the course is going to always be in the units area, so obviously you're just kind of clicking into, let's say, due dates, for example. Checking when things are due, what unit is due, and then just clicking yourself into that unit and doing all the work that's in there. Be careful that some units will have multiple folders that you're going into, so there might be an assignment within a folder, but that's not the only assignment for the unit. So just be careful, again, reading things carefully and kind of getting a sense for how things are organized and, you know, foldered together so that you're not losing points just because you missed seeing that something was due. So the first step to success online is just, again, getting situated in the course, like where everything is. Obviously taking a look at the policies, how the grading works, the grade breakdown and all that kind of stuff, knowing where the work is, and then reading instructions carefully. So again, you're not writing a really great essay, but on totally the wrong topic. And so it's a great essay, but it doesn't grade very well or score very well because it doesn't really complete the assignment as it was assigned. Okay, a quick thing on due dates then. Again, especially in our 5-week format because it's so compressed, normally these would take 16 weeks. These are 16-week courses to get 3 credits. Now you're getting 3 credits, so it's the same in 5 weeks, so a third of the time basically. So due dates come really quickly back to back sometimes. In some cases there might be 2 units due on the same day if the work sort of goes together or it just makes sense to do that. So I really needed to compress things, obviously, to get it working in the 5-week format. There's really no way around that. So when you click into the due dates, obviously look at all of the due dates, not just the one that seems to be next on the list. Since often things will pop up really quickly in terms of the next due date, or units might be due on the same day, or just whatever's going on. One of the things that happens just in trying to schedule all this so that we don't have too many units due on the same day is I have tried to space things out, but that often means that I'm sort of expecting that you'll be working a little bit on the weekends. I don't think there's any due dates that require only weekend work. There's always a little piece of a weekday, either on the back or the front end. But in a lot of cases, you will have to spend some weekend time doing it, and I will as well. So it's a compressed time for me, and I try to get back to people by email really quickly. I'm doing these things all the time, and then obviously getting things graded in a timely manner too, so you know how you're doing in the course. You'll notice there's a My Grades link here. That's obviously how you can check to make sure you're getting full credit, and you're keeping up with assignments and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I'm tired already. I can't believe it. All right, so due dates. I knew there was more stuff I wanted to say, but in fact, maybe it's just the most important thing is due dates and keeping up with the work. You can see in our policies, late work, just it's not going to fly, especially in this format. You get behind a little bit and then you play catch up, but you're not getting credit for that late work, and then you get later and later. You really have to devote time for the next 5 weeks to this being your primary responsibility. Again, if you're just going to do this course kind of when you get a chance to, life doesn't work that way. Just like I'm going to paint the fence when I get a chance to, well, that fence ain't painted. So I guess the other thing to think about is if this were, let's say, a 16-week course and we're meeting face-to-face, we would meet, 10 to 10:50 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So for 3 credits, you meet 3 hours a week, and that's just classroom time. So, because of the 5-week format, our weekly, hourly numbers would go up. It would triple, right? So all of a sudden we're at, so many more hours per week. Like that would be, we would meet, in a 16 or a 5-week class, you'd be meeting, the online part doesn't quite, calculate because your hours can be flexible, but you really need to devote basically triple the time, and that's just equivalent to being in a class. That doesn't include like the homework part of it. So whatever hours you want to add to that, just do the math, and the number of hours per week that you really need to devote to getting this stuff done is pretty substantial. The good news is that a lot of it is flexible. Obviously you're following due dates, but how you apportion the hours you need to spend doing the course, and again that includes a lot of the reading stuff or maybe some of the writing assignments, those hours can be flexible in as much as it's early morning, it's late at night, it's middle of the day, whatever it happens to be. But I would really, really encourage you to make as a part of your schedule doing online work. Again, don't just make it like, well, I'm going to do all these other things, and then when I get a chance at the end of the day, which ends up being like 11:30 at night and you're exhausted, that can't be the time to somehow get in, figure out what the assignment is, do all the reading, do the assignment, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of what we do is discussion board based, even if it's more formal writing that we're actually doing sometimes. The discussion board, like it or not, timestamps everything that you do, so I can see. And I don't really make a point of like looking for this, but it does become obvious when it's a pattern. If you're that guy who's always the 11:59 p.m. guy, and you've done a post and responses to students in like the space of 10 minutes, that doesn't really reflect too well on your investment in the course. Okay, so I will kind of wrap things up here then with a way of thinking about what we're doing here that is really common sense and I'm sure is sort of obvious to everybody, but I think it often escapes people, and I don't know if it's, whatever happens, maybe it's the discipline of English, people don't seem to make the equation, or maybe it's the online part, I'm not really sure, but basically everything that we do, you need to think in terms of the assessment that we're working towards. That's sort of like a drastic term for just the work that we do, whether it's formal, informal writing, whatever, discussion board stuff, all that. Ultimately, what you want to think about is, does that work? Does the assessment that you produce, that writing work, does it show me that you have understood and are now applying course concepts? Have you followed basic directions? That kind of stuff. So when it comes to grading, your grade will largely reflect the degree to which you've invested yourself in producing work that shows me, that you read material, followed directions, made an effort. You're not just the 11:59 p.m. guy over and over again. So that, again, it's very commonsensical, and it is just sort of it should go without saying that sometimes we forget, and we do all this work for a course. Even if you're sitting in a classroom, you're doing stuff in class, and then you go to produce an essay, or for us, like a discussion board poster, whatever it might be, and somehow we forget, and there becomes this disconnect between all the stuff we've done and then this work that we produce. And so me, on the professor side, sees the work, and from that I need to guess at whether you've done the actual material for the course. And if the writing that you produce doesn't reflect that you've engaged, got it, and now applied it, then whatever actually happened, like you maybe worked really hard through all that stuff, but then you produced writing that didn't reflect that, I can't guess that you worked really hard. I have to just go on the writing you produce. So just be really conscious that, as is kind of the case almost all the time that we write publicly like this for someone else to read, you don't get to be there to explain or defend or to show how this shows, that I get the course thing. The writing itself has to do that. So basically your work has to show, has to reflect your investment of time and energy. I need to see that immediately. So ideas are well developed. There's basic, there's no grammatical or mechanical errors or just typos, sloppy work. You follow directions, just basic stuff like that. And so that is largely how I grade, at least initially, to see has this student made the investment in learning the material that he or she can now apply it in a meaningful way. And again, this goes for the major assignments, but also smaller, more minor assignments that we do within units as well. So just be really conscious of how you are representing yourself through your writing for the online course. And again, maybe it's even more so for online because we don't have any kind of rapport to develop in the physical or face-to-face environment. You'll notice actually that one of the things that I really try to overcome or bring into the online environment for us is that sense of a class community. So you're not just out there somewhere in cyber world and I'm in my stinky office here. We're actually people as part of an actual class, and I'm the actual guy who sits here trading emails with you or reading your work or responding and doing all that stuff, And equally important is what you'll be able to see is that your other classmates are involved too. So we do develop that sense of kind of cohesion, a little sense of community, like we're doing this together as a class. And it's not just this weird kind of correspondence school that you're now part of. So our first unit, in fact, is really devoted to that in as much as you are introducing yourself in a couple of different ways. Primarily the home page, which is really simple to do through Blackboard. There's lots of help within the course here. Again, follow directions, read carefully. You're developing your own homepage, maybe the most important part of which is a picture. I put a little video on mine because I'm Swift that way. Mostly I just wanted to see if it would work, and it did, which is cool. But it's a great way of introducing yourself, right? But also being able to see what your classmates actually look like. And they're real people too, not a bunch of robots out there, I hope, doing courses. So hopefully that sense of community of being in a class helps you to engage with the material in the course, but also with the class, as a group of people. Because a large part of what we do beyond just a lot of the reading stuff or individual writing is obviously responding to what one another is posting in the discussion board. So it sort of helps to, imagine what that person is like, or that there's a life beyond just those individual text posts that you read. So be sure to follow directions for the homepage and make sure you get a picture up there. Or other kinds of stuff you can include as well, like video's not that hard, audio, links to websites you like or stuff you think is cool, whatever. So a pretty informal beginning to the class, but actually pretty important for developing some sense of community within what we're doing here. Okay, so we are off to the races. 5 weeks. Here we go. Fasten your seatbelt. Make sure you get into all of the sections of our course here. Just get a sense of how things are laid out. Where's the grading information? Where is the late policy? All that stuff. Take a look at the units, see how they break down as far as what we're covering, how many there are. Obviously, read through the due dates, read through all of the due dates to see where they fall, how you're going to kind of apportion your time as we go throughout the term. Uh, there's a lot to manage. So especially right now, it's really important that you just get oriented, get situated in the course, so you know where stuff is, how we proceed, expectations for you. They're laid out hopefully clearly, because obviously it's not fair for me to expect things but not to make those clear, and then if you produce work that's not what I expected, well, if I didn't tell you, then how are you supposed to know? So hopefully I've made that pretty clear, and obviously be sure to be in touch with me if you do have questions, especially as we get started and things are a little frantic for everybody, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll talk to everybody soon.